Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. It's the day after Anthony Joshua's successful defense of the heavyweight title against Wladimir Klitschko. It's April 30th, 2017. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let me say, first, going in, understand I was completely biased watching the fight. This is a big loss for me, right? I thought the fight was a mismatch. I was expecting Wladimir Klitschko to dominate, right? The main question for me, personally, was when was Anthony Joshua, who had never made it to the championship rounds, going to crack, right? I saw the crowd, I saw the ring entrances, right? Joshua takes about 5 days and 4 nights to enter the ring, and I just was laughing to myself, right? I thought, wow, isn't this crowd set up to be silenced, right? I looked at Joshua and I just thought, wow, here's a young guy who doesn't even know what he's getting into. So I was on the extreme end of the spectrum, right? I wasn't just expecting the underdog to win. I was expecting the underdog to win by knockout, right? The hedge I recommended here online to viewers was to take the under 8.5 rounds, hedged with Wladimir Klitschko to win. Now, I lost on both sides of the hedge. We all have different views on the fight. I understand no one's view is really the mainstream view. Let me offer mine. To understand this fight, I think you have to look closely at the 5th round. I think the 5th round determined everything else in the fight. In the 5th round, Joshua lands on Wladimir Klitschko, and Klitschko goes down. Right now, Klitschko had actually been looking decent. He was looking good to me, but he goes down in the round. Now, what's interesting is when he gets off the canvas, in my opinion, right, Klitschko, you can tell, is more hurt than he appears. He's tasted Joshua's power, and he doesn't like the flavor, right? His body, to me, looks a little bit uncoordinated. I get the feeling that that 5th round knockdown is a real knockdown that hurt Wladimir Klitschko. So we get to the 6th round. Now, keep in mind, you can imagine the horror on my face when Klitschko hits the canvas, right? I thought, come on, Vlad, get up, shake it off. Then he gets up, and it didn't look like he completely shook it off. So we get to the 6th round. And in my opinion, Anthony Joshua breaks. And I mean breaks completely. Right? The crowd is a Joshua crowd. They're firmly behind him. He's entered the ring. He's looked calm. He's wearing white. Right? All eyes on me, to quote Tupac. Right? He's unbeaten. He's invincible. No fighter has made it to the end of the fight against him. 100% knockout ratio. He's been the big man in the ring. He's been the bully in the ring until the 6th round. He gets hit on the temple by Wladimir Klitschko. Right? Hit on the temple. Now understand, this fight has some gaps. Right? I'll concede, as a Klitschko supporter, that Anthony Joshua looked like he had the bigger punch. Looked like he had more power on his side. But from the Klitschko side of the aisle, it looked to me like Wladimir Klitschko had a decided, and I mean decided, foot speed advantage. Right? Klitschko's getting to places before Anthony Joshua. He's much more mobile than Anthony Joshua. Joshua looks like he has to be flat-footed to throw big punches. Wladimir Klitschko looks more fluid than Anthony Joshua. Right? In the 6th round, he hits Joshua on the temple and Joshua goes down. You can sense the air go out of the building. When Joshua gets back up, on a scale of 1 to 10, Joshua has maybe a 1/10 of a tank left. There's time left in the round. Joshua is not only badly hurt, he looks tired. He looks exhausted. You know, I'm looking at the round and I felt sorry for him in that moment. I thought, man, for him to lose his title like this, people are going to wonder whether there was any authenticity to the aura. But then Wladimir Klitschko goes over there. And rather than empty the tank, rather than batter Anthony Joshua, who at this point looks too tired and too hurt to hurt Wladimir Klitschko, it looks to me like Wladimir Klitschko is thinking about the pain he felt in the 5th round. Something's holding him back. Right? Here he has a young lion who's badly hurt, who looks tired. Right? Looks tired. Looks finished. And Wladimir Klitschko goes over there and he doesn't close the show. More importantly, he doesn't even try to close the show. Right? One would have thought he would have run over there. Klitschko does have, even though he hardly goes to the body, he does have a pretty good left hook to the body. By the way, we'll get back to that left hook because that's one of the stories of the fight. But Klitschko doesn't even go over there and throw a lot of punches, including left hooks to the body, to just hit a hurt man and deplete his energy further while he's down. Let's say Klitschko feels, hey, you know, this guy's going to continue on. Right? Let's say Klitschko misjudges the scene, because I thought Anthony Joshua is done. I was doing a victory lap in my head. As I said, I was feeling sorry for Joshua. Klitschko goes over there. Even if he thought Joshua had enough gas to go to the 7th round, I thought he would at least come over and throw some body punches that Joshua would have felt right after the round ends. Well, instead, Klitschko goes over now. I believe it's because Klitschko was fearful that Joshua was going to leap forward and hit him with the kind of shot that put him down in the 5th round. Let's just say Klitschko's a bit tentative at the end of the 6th round. Right? The opportunity I wanted appeared. Klitschko let it pass. So we get to the 7th round. Anthony Joshua still looks spent to me, folks. Right? He still looks spent to me. Klitschko comes out. There's no urgency with Wladimir Klitschko. Right? Again, I got the feeling Klitschko was nervous that he was going to overextend himself and get countered by Joshua, who counters with power shots. Right? And I think Klitschko is remembering the 5th round that I'm sure many of the fans had forgotten by the 7th round, where Joshua's in trouble. Now, let me just say this. I feel that Joshua's corner knew he was in trouble. I have to give, in fact, I'm going to shine a light right here on his trainer, Robert McCracken. Joshua has one of the more interesting corners in boxing. It's not a fan club corner. Right? It's not a fan club corner. It's not a corner that's afraid to tell the young lion that he's getting roughed up. At the end of the 7th round, McCracken is so disgusted with his fighter that he says to Joshua, "Come on, mate." He's pleading with Joshua. Right? What's got into you, basically? I want you to focus on the dialogue between the fighter and his corner at the end of round 7. But what's noteworthy is that Klitschko after severely beating Joshua. Maybe Klitschko thought the last 6 rounds would be a victory lap. Doesn't have the urgency to empty the tank to go for the KO. In other words, in the 11th round, when Anthony Joshua hits Klitschko with the uppercut to end all uppercuts, folks, that's the inflection point in the fight. Understand, it's competitive until Klitschko almost gets decapitated. If you see one punch in this fight, it's the uppercut in the 11th round, right? You notice that when Joshua gets Klitschko hurt, he tries his best to jump on Wladimir Klitschko. He pushes the issue, knocks Klitschko down a second time. Then the referee lets the fight continue. Then he gets Klitschko over by the ropes. He's the opposite of Klitschko. Whereas Klitschko has a guy who is almost out on his feet. More importantly, he's been embarrassed before his crowd. The aura of invincibility is gone when Joshua is hurt in the 6th round, whereas Klitschko is treading lightly. Doesn't jump in, doesn't throw a lot of punches. Understand, he didn't even have to be effective throwing a lot of punches. If you look at the stoppage in the 11th round, you're going to notice Klitschko's blocking shots right before the fight stopped. But Joshua is aggressive, throwing a lot of punches. If Klitschko would have just jumped on Joshua in the 6th round and let his hands go, there's a possibility, since Joshua was dead on his feet, there's a possibility the ref might have jumped in to stop the fight. But Klitschko didn't even do that. Right? Now, I'm not blaming Wladimir Klitschko. You get hit with the kind of sledgehammers that Joshua throws, and I could see a fighter thinking to himself, you know what, I'm not going to overextend myself here, because I know this guy hits like a Mack truck. And if I open up and leave myself open to counters, he might just run that Mack truck down my road, right? He might just take me out. But I feel this fight turned on Klitschko's tentativeness at the end of the 6th round, going into the 7th round. Let me just say this too about the 11th round. Now, I know we all know the judges' scorecards. 2 judges had Joshua ahead. 1 judge had Klitschko ahead. Okay, fair enough. But just understand, the fighters didn't know that in the moment. The fight's close in the 11th round. What I don't understand is that Klitschko, with one of the best jabs in boxing, against a guy with a 100% KO ratio, why didn't Klitschko decide to just stay outside in the 11th round, right? He has a decided foot speed advantage. Decided. What's he doing allowing Joshua to get so close to him to throw that uppercut? Now, I know Joshua's slick in terms of coming up and then suddenly being up in Klitschko's grill. But I was surprised that Klitschko, a vet, allowed that to happen. Right? There are less than 6 minutes left in the fight. By any measure, you're in the fight. It's close. By any measure, you've done better than any other Anthony Joshua opponent to date. Right? I was surprised that Klitschko didn't go Oscar De La Hoya against Felix Trinidad. Right? Isn't now the time to use a jab? Why trade with the young lion after the young lion gets his second wind? Right? If it's late in the contest and you're actually relatively even with the young lion, if you have an argument where if you win the 11th and you win the 12th, a significant portion of the crowd is going to firmly believe you've won the fight, right? They're going to demand a rematch. Why would you, as Joshua tries to come deep in the pocket, why would you allow him to get so close? Look how close Joshua is, that he could hit you with an uppercut, right? I thought Klitschko took his eye a little bit off the ball, right? That uppercut changes the fight. Klitschko never gets his balance back. He's in the worst kind of shape, where you got the feeling Wladimir Klitschko could think, but his body wasn't cooperating with him. Let's talk about some other observations from this fight. First, and keep in mind, my perspective is the perspective of someone who thought Wladimir Klitschko was going to win this fight. At the opening bell of the first round, I was wondering how the first round was going to play out. Right? Joshua is a guy who has knocked out a lot of people in the early rounds. Right? He's landed a lot of big punches in the early rounds. I was wondering, is this going to be like Ali Foreman, where the older fighter, and keep in mind, Klitschko's a lot older than Ali was back in that fight. Right? I was wondering if Klitschko was going to try to lay on the ropes, allow the young lion, Joshua, to throw himself out. Was going to have Joshua throw a bunch of punches that Klitschko could block. Was going to dare Joshua to come in and throw on him. Was going to wait for the young guy to get a little tired. Right? And then was going to say, okay, he's tired enough. Let me get off these ropes. Let me throw a combination. Now, the problem with that is, of course, you're risking getting caught. Right? You're also risking having the crowd really get into it. You want a Joshua crowd to get into it, you allow Joshua to tee off on you early in the fight. Well, instead, Klitschko took a different strategy. Right? And it was exactly the strategy I wanted him to take. He came out on his front foot. That first round is almost like Floyd Mayweather against Canelo. Klitschko comes out on his front foot. He forces Joshua on his back foot. Klitschko refuses to concede the pocket. Now, I know many people gave the early rounds to Anthony Joshua. Judges watching the fight gave the early rounds to Anthony Joshua. But if you were a Klitschko supporter, especially one who didn't think the fight was going to go the distance, didn't think Joshua was going to have anything in the second half of the fight, right? The first round was exactly what you wanted, because Joshua was forced to fight on his back foot. He was forced to expend energy. Right? There was also a male thing going on where Klitschko, and keep in mind, Joshua has a great straight right hand. Remember the Charles Martin fight. Joshua can knock you out with a straight right hand. Klitschko's daring him to throw it. Klitschko has his left hand down at times. Right? There are times where Joshua tries to open up and Klitschko has him figured out. These guys sparred in the past. Klitschko has him figured out to the point where Klitschko's just raising his hands like this. And he's inside of Joshua's punches. Joshua can't land that right hand. Klitschko raises his hand at time and the punch lands on his shoulder. So as I'm watching the early rounds, I thought, great. He's forcing Joshua to fight. He's not allowing Joshua to get comfortable in the pocket. He's feinting Joshua to death. Right? He's letting Joshua know he can't hit him. But the catch was that Joshua was prepared, wasn't he? Because Klitschko has a great left hook. We're back to the left hook. Right? Klitschko seemed to feel, you could tell it, looking at the fight, Klitschko seemed to feel that he'd be able to catch Joshua with that left hook as Joshua leaned in to throw his right hand. But Joshua, and this is a credit to his preparation, this is a credit to his sparring partners, his trainer McCracken, Joshua somehow had that left hook timed to where Klitschko throws it and misses with it maybe 5 or 6 times. Right? You notice Klitschko come up and throw a left hook, and Joshua, who's a knockout puncher, was too far away to have the left hook land. You actually see the left hook winging past him. Right? Never catches Joshua. Well, a lot's going on that side, because you'll notice Joshua, who has a good right hand to the body, whenever Joshua did step forward to throw the right hand to the body, incredibly, Klitschko was able to tie him up. There literally clinches in this fight. Klitschko even gets Joshua under his underarm a few times. Right? Joshua, young fighter, didn't know how to avoid the clinches. Right? Joshua, young fighter, didn't know how to feint to set up that right hook to the body. So, on this side of the aisle, right, let's just say this is Klitschko's left hook. Right? Joshua neutralizes Klitschko's left hook. Right? Klitschko neutralizes Joshua's right hand to the body. Right? So what you end up with here, Joshua even flashes the uppercut earlier in the fight. Klitschko is too far away for the uppercut to land. Right? It looked to me like Joshua had a problem getting inside. It looked to me like Klitschko didn't want to get too close to Anthony Joshua. So, this is a fascinating fight. It was a chess match. Now, what surprised me was that Joshua was able to get a second win. I'm still surprised by that. He looked so dead in the 6th round. He looked finished to me in the 7th round. But somehow he catches a second win. Now, he's losing rounds, but you notice he's back. Right? This is a guy who had never been on the canvas in a professional fight. I understand he was on the canvas against Dylan White as an amateur. But as a pro on a stage of this magnitude, he had never been on the canvas. So he gets off the canvas, he gets a second win, then he's able to do a great job on that uppercut to win the fight. Right? Let me applaud everyone. It was a great fight. Joshua is the man right now in boxing. Few people could get 90,000 people to watch their boxing match. I understand other guys have titles out there. Right? I question whether Deontay Wilder or Joseph Parker can pull this kind of crowd, right? I also question whether they have the legitimacy that comes with beating a Wladimir Klitschko for the heavyweight title, right? Make no mistake, Anthony Joshua looms large. This was a passing of the torch, right? Even someone like me who was rooting for Wladimir Klitschko, right, realizes Klitschko lost the fight. That the young lion in coming back showed the heart of a champion. I mean, folks, he's done in the 6th round. This fight's over. And then somehow by the start of the 8th round, Anthony Joshua is back. Right? To get the urgency, listen to Joshua's corner talking to him. Right? There are a few rounds there where they're saying, hey, what's going on, man? Get it going. Right? Get it going. As the cornerman said, come on, mate. Right? Joshua got it going. Wladimir Klitschko is a closer. Look at his KO percentage over many fights. He's a closer. And Wladimir Klitschko, to me, remembering the 5th round, is tentative. Joshua has that kind of power, right? I want you to look at the uppercut in the 11th round. I mean, honestly, Wladimir Klitschko is lucky his head's still attached to his shoulders, right? That's the kind of uppercut where I was rooting for Klitschko. The minute I saw it, I was looking at the clock, and I thought, man, does he have enough time to recover? Right? The other problem was, even if he recovered, right, he would need a knockout in the 12th round to win the fight. So Joshua proved me wrong. I lost big on this fight. It was a classic fight. It's a legacy-making fight. Whatever holes you think exists in Joshua's game, and Joshua understands he shouldn't have been clinched as much. He might have a tell. Wladimir Klitschko seemed to have his right hands to the body timed too perfectly. He needs to pace himself better, right? He is tired, right? Apart from the knockdown, he's tired in the 6th round, right? He needs to, do that. He needs to work on spacing a little bit. In other words, when you bum rush Floyd Mayweather, Mayweather will often stand his ground. He'll have you leaning on his shoulder. He won't give up the pocket. Here you could tell Anthony Joshua's a little bit unsure of himself. But understand, these are the kind of fights that lift a young man's game. Right? This is like getting an education from a master. I thought Joshua learned so much from Wladimir Klitschko in this fight that if you're a future opponent of Joshua's, you better fight him quick. If I'm Tyson Fury, I need to fight him as soon as possible, because I can't afford to have this level of a puncher, and he's a huge puncher, right? Get better and better. You don't want Anthony Joshua learning more if you're an opponent. You need to take advantage of the fact that the guy's a little bit green. I think he realizes now more than ever how green he is. Right? Because I'm just telling you, in a year or two, this guy's going to be a terror. I'm guessing the next Joshua fight, when he comes inside and some guy tries to grab him, Joshua's going to be prepared for it. He's going to make himself small. He might have a hand up. Right? He's not going to allow himself to be clinched. Let's talk about the future for Wladimir Klitschko. Klitschko has a hard decision to make. Apparently there's a rematch clause out there. But boxing's a violent sport. You're in your 40s. Understand, Anthony Joshua hits hard. People can get badly hurt. Your body doesn't recover as well in its 40s as it does in its 20s, right? Wladimir Klitschko just got knocked down 3 times by this young man, twice in the 11th, once in the 5th, right? I'm just telling you, the 5th round knockdown, when Klitschko gets up, his body isn't cooperating with his mind, right? He looked uncoordinated to me. Now, he's a new dad. Right? People in their 40s think about things like this. He's a new dad. He's no longer the bachelor. Right? Running around, thinking, hey, I'll take the risk because only my life depends on the risk I take. Now he has to think about other people. Right? There are many things in life that might be very rewarding, that carry a lot less danger than hopping in the ring with a heavy-handed young lion who's trying to take your head off, who can drop you with one punch. The biggest punch Anthony Joshua threw didn't drop Wladimir Klitschko. It's that uppercut. I don't think Wladimir Klitschko in his entire career, and this includes the Corey Sanders fight, has ever been hit like that. So if I'm Wladimir Klitschko, for health reasons, I might feel fortunate that I'm at the end of the road and I have my faculties still. Why jeopardize that by hopping in the ring again with the young lion? Let's also talk about legacy, right? Understand, he just hopped in the ring with a young lion, and he acquitted himself well, didn't he? Right? As he himself said after the fight, I don't feel like a loser. If Anthony Joshua goes on to bigger and better things and doesn't get tested like he was in this fight, in other words, doesn't get knocked down, doesn't look dead in the water, doesn't have his corner saying to him, come on, mate, 1 round later, right, pleading with him to get back in the fight, right? If Anthony Joshua goes on and never gets tested like this again, understand the way legacy works. We'll look back and we'll say, wow, well, Wladimir Klitschko was such a son of a gun that he was able, on his farewell fight, to put this young lion down, right? To actually drop Joshua, to actually test Joshua, to take Joshua into the 11th round. Right? So to me, from a legacy perspective, Wladimir Klitschko is covered. He didn't get knocked out of the ring his last fight. Sorry, Bernard Hopkins. Right? He didn't get embarrassed his last fight. He's in the fight at the time of the stoppage. One judge had him in the lead. But you and I know the way this really works, don't we? Right? A lot of fighters have a fire in them. If Wladimir Klitschko looks at the film of this fight and feels that there are things he could have done differently that would have gotten himself the win, and I don't know how he could look at the 6th round and not feel that, right? If he feels that he could have beaten Anthony Joshua, that he should have beaten Anthony Joshua, and that he's still the best in the heavyweight division, right? Then the fact that he's in his 40s, the fact that he has a young child, the fact that he has a gorgeous girlfriend, the fact that he has money in the bank, right? The fact that he just made millions of dollars he hasn't even touched yet, that's going to go all out the window if those competitive juices are still burning, right? So, let me just say, I personally would not be surprised if this was Wladimir Klitschko's last fight, right? What an exit before 90,000 people at Wembley Stadium. What an exit, right? Knocking down a guy who had never been knocked down before in a heavyweight match, right? What an exit. Leading on the scorecards at the time of the stoppage, right? Not being counted out, getting up off the canvas twice in your last round, trying to fight back. What an exit. What a career. Right? But, again, this is boxing. Lord knows. Lord knows. We've seen a lot of fighters who had an excellent opportunity to walk away from the sport with the perfect ending, or the near perfect ending, who have decided to continue their careers, right? So I don't know what Wladimir Klitschko is going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't call it a day, right? Be a father to his kid, be a man to his woman. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Yes, I was wrong on this fight. Go ahead and leave your comments on why. Tell us what surprised you about the fight. Tell us what didn't surprise you about the fight. Tell us what worked. Tell us what didn't work. I did think it was very revealing. I thought both of these guys had opportunities. I did think it was very revealing that Wladimir Klitschko was that off on his left hook, right? I did think it was very revealing that he was able to somehow tie up Anthony Joshua, who seemed physically stronger than him, right? And he was able to stop Joshua from landing that right to the body, right? I thought that was interesting. I am wondering what happened in that 11th round, how Joshua, and he was slick with it, but how Joshua was able to get that close to Wladimir Klitschko. I thought Klitschko would just naturally have a handout, right? Make it look like he's throwing a jab or something like that if Joshua got in the area code, just to keep him far enough away where punches like that uppercut weren't possible. Anyway, let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.